Hey everyone, welcome to eBike Choices. My name is Caleb and today is going to be awesome as we are ride reviewing the HITWAY BK29M. This is HITWAY's retro e-bike, and as you can see behind me, I have it right here. And so this bike is on the less expensive side. It's actually one of the least expensive bikes that I've personally tested. And so it's gonna be good to see how the quality performs and what we're looking at for this bike. So just to give like a brief overview, today we'll be doing a quick ride and then also just kind of walking through some of the specs and seeing how this thing performs. All right, this is the BK29 from HITWAY. It's got rear and front suspension, which is a nice feature on this bike, especially for the price. I would say the rear coil shock does a pretty good job. It's definitely not a full suspension bike by any means. So the rear shock does get a little bit bouncy, so it's underdamped. And so when you hit bumps, it's gonna kind of fling you just a little bit. So just be aware of that. The front shock does a pretty good job. It's definitely not any kind of like mountain biking shock by any means. But if you're aware of that, you know, it's nice when you go down the path or the trail or whatever you're gonna ride, you're gonna get a nice, you know, a little bit more of a damped ride instead of a hard ride that you would with no suspension whatsoever. This bike has somewhat of fat tire wheels on it. It does pretty good, been cornering pretty well, and they handle really well. So you can kind of lean the bike over as you're going around a turn, especially using the throttle, and it does a good job keeping traction. I haven't slid out, and it's done a pretty good job so far. It's got disc brakes on both front and rear. The rotors are a little bit small, especially for a bike that weighs this much, but it's nice to see disc brakes on this thing. And we'll test those out and see how they perform as well. The other interesting note is that the seat on this bike is not adjustable and it's really wide. So if you're looking for a bike you're going to go out and pedal and do things with, you might want to check out a different bike. And that's just because it's not made to pedal. Honestly, I would say this is more of a throttle bike. If you're looking to cruise around on something that looks unique, this is a good bike for you, especially at the price point. If you're looking to actually get out and pedal and ride, I would say that this bike is definitely a little bit uncomfortable. And the reason for that is because the seat is really wide. So if you're gonna be pedaling a lot, you're gonna be hitting the seat a bunch. And then plus it's not adjustable. So you can't get the seat height right. So that way you can get the full leg stroke. So as I'm pedaling this bike, it's only going down to, you know, my knee is basically at a right angle, maybe a little bit less than a right angle. So I'm definitely losing a lot of power when I pedal. So just be aware of that. If that's something you're looking for, I would probably recommend a different bike. But if you're looking to cruise around, then this is a good option for sure. All right, so the other things I want to show you are on the left-hand side, we've got a plus and minus, and that's going to help our pedal assist. We also have the power button over here, but before we get into that, I want to show you the battery. So the battery is cool because it's got an energy meter on it where it's going to show empty to full, and it also has a switch. And so with that, you can turn the battery off completely and the bike won't turn on. There's also a key that comes with it, you can see here. And so you can remove the battery and take it with you, just in case you're gonna store it outside, or you just wanna separate the battery from the bike. And also for a safety measure too. If you take the battery out, then this bike, you know, is super heavy and probably nobody's gonna take it. So basically, in order to turn this thing on, we're gonna hit the power button over here to on, and then we'll come back up here and then hold down the power button here. That's gonna turn our bike on. You can see I've ridden 9 miles. Pedal assist always comes up as 0. And so as we cycle through, you know, the max assist is 3. This bike will hit 20 miles an hour with the pedal assist. You've got your throttle over here, and then you have your 7-gear selector over here. It's pretty easy to use. You know, to downshift, you push this knob back, and then to upshift you push the little plus sign and it takes you up. You got your brakes, and then the last feature I want to talk about is the headlight. This is a pretty good sized headlight. It's going to do well at nighttime. I haven't actually taken it out at night yet, but just given the size of this light, it'll be pretty good. And so plus one other feature is as you're riding, as you turn the bike on, there's a white ring that turns on automatically, and then when you turn the headlight on, it'll get even brighter. So that is the HITWAY BK29 intro. Let's get out there and start riding, and we'll go from there. All right, so I already showed you how to turn on the bike. So now we're gonna ride the bike. So one of the nice features about this bike is it has a throttle, and this is a bike that you're definitely going to use the throttle a lot. As you can see I'm sitting pretty far back on the bike just because that's where, you know, it's comfortable to hold on to. And then also where your pedals are, that's where you're going to want to sit anyway. So I'm already in pedal assist 3, so we're going to take off going up this hill and show you what it looks like. So let's get to it. All right, there we go. It's reached top speed. So this bike definitely, you know, it has power, but it doesn't have like absolute gobs of power, I would say. It's not, you know, it's not terrible, but it's also not the best. One other thing that you'll notice, if you look at the energy bar right now, we're a little bit below half. So one thing that's a little bit challenging with this bike is actually telling how much power you have left. Because as you let go of the throttle, you're gonna see the energy bar climb back up. So how much range do I actually have with this bike? Well, it's kind of unknown. So that's something that, you know, I would definitely see if, you know, HITWAY can improve on. Because you don't want to get stranded with this bike. It weighs a lot. And so if you go out there and run the battery dry and you're kind of out there, like this isn't a bike you're gonna want to go pedal back. Also that bump, those bumps that I just hit back there, that rear coil shock definitely throws you. So it absorbs the bump, but you also get kicked out of the seat. So just be aware of that if you're going with high speed, you know, with some high speed riding, because we're still doing pretty good. You know, we're doing about 20 miles an hour back there. So what I do like is that you can lean this bike over really far. So the nice wide stable tires, you know, give you plenty of grip, which I really appreciate. I think that's great. So we got our first hairpin turn, so I can lean over really well into that, and it works really well. So I'm not worried about sliding out or having any kind of issues like that. So right now, no throttle assist, I'm just pedaling. And you know, this bike takes a while to kick in. So there's a sensor that's monitoring whether or not you're pedaling. And that sensor is slow to respond, especially when you start going, you know, pretty fast. So just be aware of that too, that there's definitely a substantial delay if you're traveling at any kind of speed before the e-bike will actually kick in. But since this bike has a throttle, you can compensate for that by using the throttle. So right back there, I just started pedaling again, and it takes about maybe, you know, 10 to 12 rotations, full rotations, before the e-assist will even kick in. So if you want a bike that responds immediately when you start pedaling, I wouldn't recommend this bike. However, if you're just out there having a good time and you don't really care how long it takes to kick in, or you're going to use the throttle anyway, it's totally fine. The other thing I'll note right now is, as I'm slowing down with the brakes, there's definitely very, very jerky motion to it. So while they're disc brakes, there's some non-uniformity where I'm like, you know, slowing down nicely and then it grabs hard, and then it slows down nicely and grabs hard. And so it results in this really jerky stopping motion, which is kind of unfortunate. So as I built this bike, I also had to adjust the brakes. And you can do that with the tools that they provide. And what I mean by that is that you're going to, you know, for me, the easiest way to do it is to flip the bike over and then spin the wheel. And if the disc brake is catching in any single regard, you can adjust it with 2 screws that are on the disc brake calibers themselves. And so on this bike, I had to do that. Even straight out of the factory, you know, the front disc brake was rubbing big time. And so I was able to adjust those. So I know the brakes are in good working condition. I know they're exactly where they're supposed to be. However, you know, there's definitely still a good amount of jerky stopping, we'll say. So, but also to note, I mean, this is a really, on the low end of price, this is a really inexpensive e-bike. So, you know, if you just want to get into it, this is a great bike to do it. You know, it's not really cost prohibitive, and you can see the cost and the price through the link in the YouTube video. And if you're just looking to get into the market, like, this is a great bike to do it. So just be aware that, you know, with the biking industry, you get what you pay for. And so if you're gonna, you know, buy an inexpensive bike, then the components and quality are gonna suffer. And if you're okay with that, then that's totally fine. So I will say that the throttle is very responsive on this bike, which I really appreciate. So right now I'm in pedal assist 2. We're hitting a max speed of 15.5 miles per hour. If I step it down to pedal assist 1, the max it's going to do is 9.3 miles an hour. So obviously I'm doing faster than that right now. And so the speedometer just tops out at 9.3. Also, there's no assist, you know, so if I, you know, pull the throttle all the way, it's not going to do anything. So, but if I step that up to 2, you know, you're actually getting a real reading, and that'll go up to 15.5. And if I step it up to 3, we're going to get up to 19.8 is the max that this will record. So if I'm going down a hill and going even faster than 19.8, that is the most that this display will show you. It's not going to go above 19.8, even if you are going above it in reality. So if you're looking for a bike that's going to actually real-time report once you go past the 20-mile-an-hour mark, this bike's not going to do it. Yeah, our brakes are still pretty jerky, even after getting a little bit warm. And if I was going to buy this bike, what I would recommend is that if you have the same problems where your brakes are really jerky, I would actually go with some aftermarket components. So I would get some different rotors that will fit this bike, as well as some different brake pads. So that should clean up the braking and just make it a little bit easier. But I will say it is unfortunate that, you know, brand new bike and we're having issues with the brakes not being smooth. So I will say that this is the first time I've actually seen a bike not have smooth brakes. But again, this is also the least expensive bike that I've ever reviewed on this channel. So, and I will say that HITWAY did provide this bike to us free of charge, but in keeping with the same mentality of the previous eBike Choices owner, Tony, you know, we're going to give you an unbiased review of this bike. So that way you, as the, you know, person that's looking to do research into this, actually knows what you're buying. Because the worst thing I could do is give you, you know, some fluffy advice on this bike. You get it and it's like, man, I just spent some money and it doesn't work the way I wanted it to. So yeah, we're in a little bit of gravel right now. Brakes responded really well. And it does well. I like the tires. You know, the tires do a great job. They grip really well and they do, you know, a nice job. All right, so now that I've gotten to ride this bike for a while, I have a good idea of what it does, what its capabilities are. Now I want to go over some pros and cons. So I'd say pros are the price point. This bike, for what it is and for being an e-bike, is really good. So if you're looking for an inexpensive way to get into the e-bike market, I think you should highly look at this bike. The other thing that I like about this bike is that the style that it brings. This isn't your traditional commuter e-bike. You know, this thing actually has like some personality to it, where it looks almost like you're riding a little bit more of like a little bit of a motorcycle. And I think that's the retro theme that HITWAY was going with this model. The other thing I like about this bike is that, you know, it's really stable. It is very stable. Most of the mass is pretty low to the ground, and that makes it so we can really lean over into turns. And, you know, it does a great job handling it. And the tires that are on here are really grippy, and they perform really well. So as far as the cons, I think this bike is for a very specific person. If you're looking to go out and ride and put miles in and pedal and get out there, I would look at a different bike. This bike doesn't have an adjustable seat, and it's a really wide seat, and honestly, it's uncomfortable to pedal. So I would say that's a con. Unless that's what you're looking for, then that becomes a pro. The other cons I would say are not the real-time reporting on the screen. So once you hit, the max of that pedal assist, it's not going to tell you the speed you're actually going. The other thing is the energy bar is pretty flaky. So if I use more throttle here, that energy bar is going to dip. I don't really know what battery level I'm at, because once I let off of it again, it's going to go back up. But I'd say like the most, I would say, disappointing thing about this bike that I've seen so far is the quality of braking. I'm really glad HITWAY put disc brakes on this bike, but the quality of the components that they put on aren't that good. So it's not a smooth braking experience. But it definitely gets the job done. So as a safety factor, it definitely works, which I appreciate, because at the end of the day, you just want to be able to stop. But even though it stops, it's not graceful. All right, so now we're gonna do the hill climb challenge. I'm in pedal assist mode 3, and we are going to use throttle up this hill. It's a decently steep hill, and let's see how this bike performs. So as you can see, the energy bar is slowly coming back up. I was down around 3 bars, and now I'm back up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're gonna see how this thing does. So here we go. All right, so right now I'm down to 2 bars on the energy. We're hitting 18 miles an hour, and this thing can't go any faster up this hill right now. And right now we're dropping back down again. We're down to 16. As the grade starts to get steeper, we're gonna continue to drop speed. So, and that's just a byproduct of what kind of bike we have. So, it's still doing a good job. I don't have to pedal right now, and I'm still doing 14.5 miles an hour, and this is a decently steep hill. So HITWAY did a good job putting the right battery and motor into this bike to make it powerful enough, but then also at the same time keep the cost low enough where if you're looking to get into the e-bike market, this is a great pick. All right, so we're getting a little bit steeper now. We're still down at 2 energy bars, but we're now going 13.3 miles an hour as we continue to climb up this hill. We're about 13 miles an hour right now. So it's, the good thing is that this motor is very consistent. The battery is consistent as well. It's not dropping out, and it's doing a good job up a decently steep hill. So circling back to the pros and cons, the last con I want to mention is that the cadence sensor on this bike takes a long time to respond. And so if you're looking for something that's going to be pretty responsive, as soon as you start pedaling, it's going to kick in. You know, the design of this bike isn't made for that. There we go, we made it to the top of the hill, and we're going 19.8 miles an hour. We got 2 bars of energy, so it did a good job. And now we're actually starting to climb back up on the energy bar. We got 3 bars. So I'd say overall, this bike really depends on, you know, what you're looking for. If you're looking for a nice, cheap, inexpensive bike where you can just hop on it and go around, this is a great option. If you're looking for a little bit more of an advanced bike where you can pedal and have the throttle assist and have some decent components, I would say that this is probably not your choice. The shocks, while it has it, are pretty unrefined, and that just kind of goes with the cost of the bike. So, because that's expected, you know, the price point's so low, but it's just nice to have shocks too, because as you hit those smaller bumps, it does a great job. But if you hit anything big, like if I was to jump off a curb or hit a dip in the road going at a high rate of speed, that rear coil shock really bucks you. So if you know about it, no big deal. But if that's not something you're looking for, then I would, you know, just be aware of that as you're making your decisions. So thanks for riding along with me as we did this e-bike review. As always, it's fun to go out and ride and explore and just see different bikes and see how they perform. So until next time, this is Caleb from eBike Choices, and a beautiful day in Colorado. Until next time, pedal fast and go further, and we'll catch you in the next one.